And we're back. I'm Natasha Kirchek, and thanks for sticking with us on I-24 News for our rolling coverage of the ongoing violence and conflict here in Israel and the Palestinian territories. Joining us now, they're still with us, is Rudy Rachman, a Jewish Israel rights activist, and Daoud Kutab, a Palestinian journalist and Middle East commentator. And I'm just going to throw a question to both of you again. We also have our panel in studio, Amir Bajran, and our senior correspondent, Owen Alterman, who will be able to also give their opinions here. But, you know, we obviously had to cut you off, Daoud. I'd like to speak about politics a bit here and the question of who is benefiting from what we are seeing happening right now in this ongoing conflict. Many are saying that the political situation here in Israel, that political deadlock, and of course, you know, the calling off of the Palestinian elections, which were supposed to take place this week, has added fuel to the fire. So what is your take on that?
Well, you know, for like 15 years, there has been a strategic Israeli decision to cut off Gaza from the West Bank. Over the 50 years, we've had three different strategic Israeli decisions: to cut off Jerusalem from the West Bank, to cut off Palestinians from the West Bank from Israel, and to cut off Gaza from the West Bank. Well, this last week, this whole strategy has fallen apart. And last week, a general strike was observed in East Jerusalem, in West Bank, in Israel, and in Gaza. So I think the beneficiary is the failure is to keep Palestinians disunited. Now, I know a lot of Palestinian citizens of Israel support the two-state solution. And I often ask them, you know, why are you supporting two-state solution that doesn't include the Nazareth or religion? They said, no, once there is a Palestinian state, we will feel much stronger and much more confident, because we don't want to be we don't want to change we understand Israel is here to exist and so on. But we think and we believe that Palestinians, our people, even though we don't live in that and we don't want to live in there, we want to visit there, should have a Palestinian state. So I think the two-state solution has been revived. The role of East Jerusalem in any resolution has been revived. And I think the idea of cutting off Gaza and keeping it away, and as if that is a strategic decision, that has failed. The winners, you know, everybody can call themselves the winners. It doesn't bother me. But I think the strategic division of Palestinians has failed.
Rudy?
Yeah, so there's a few things that were mentioned before. I want to start by saying that the reference point, you know, I've been an activist all my life and on social media for 10 years. Never have I ever heard someone saying that the reference point as to why the Jewish people have right to exist is because it says it in the Torah. It's because we come from this land. You dig in the land, you find our history. You look at history books, that's where we come from when we had a constant presence there. That's a reference point. Now, in terms of the United Nations, you know, not everything that is legal or illegal is moral or immoral, but everyone keeps bringing up Resolution 242. There have been several wars that happened afterwards. That resolution was actually rejected by the PLO until '88. And there are many things that happened since. So for me, when we're talking about a two-state solution, I'm against the two-state solution. If I lived during the time of the partition plan, I would have rejected it. If I lived in the time when they were talking about it at the United Nations with Resolution 242, I would have rejected it. And anyone talking about it today, I vehemently reject it, because a solution has to come by fulfilling the needs of both peoples and being able to change and create a system where they both experience justice. And a two-state solution does neither for either. We need one land that is united, Jerusalem reunited, and potentially also Gaza being a part of that land, and to create a system that here works for us, and for us to be able to experience this land as a Jewish state, and for Palestinians to be able to experience this land as a Palestinian state, because we don't actually have contradictory needs. When we actually take the time to speak to each other and realize what are the needs of both peoples, they don't contradict. They only contradict in our mind because we superimpose our own definitions of identity and our own definitions of aspirations onto the other, because that's what everyone else wants to see. That's what England wanted to see when they were colonizers, and they did the same thing to us that they did to Pakistan and India and the ethnic groups in Afghanistan and the ethnic groups in Nigeria. And today, those that are profiting are those that are in power, Mahmoud Abbas included, those that are head of Hamas included, the weapon companies that are making all the money by selling weapons to Israel and having Israel dependent on America, allowing America to do what it wants. All these media companies that are playing the game and dividing us. All these NGOs. You know, my father told me a sentence growing up. He told me that every organization could be originally created to serve a cause, but eventually the cause serves them. And that's not any different for all these NGOs that are profiting and that are in bed with all these politicians and embezzling money. And they're all rich and millionaires, not because they invested in Bitcoin and Ethereum a few years ago. It's because they're embezzling all that money that is supposed to go and help the people. So how about we start focusing on the people that matter. And we focus also on the why we're even here in the first place historically and why we're here now and how do we transcend it. It's not by creating a two-state solution, and it's not by taking all of one group's suffering and pinning it against the legitimacy and the identity of the other. It's by speaking to each other, understanding and changing the system from within so that when we experience this land as a whole, we can live here equally.
Dawood, I saw you nodding there. Is there something that you wanted to say? Was that an agreement, perhaps?
You brought the wrong kutab. My brother and my kids are much more closer to his opinion of the one state being for Israelis and Palestinians with equal rights. But the reality is there is the law of return that says that Jews can come from anywhere in the world and become citizens. There is the new Jewish law that separates Jews from non-Jews. So once you remove these discriminatory laws that Human Rights Watch talked about, and once you have one state, that was the original PLO position, secular democratic state for Jews, Christians, and Muslims and non-religious people to live in one state. That's great. Israel is not willing to do that. And even if some of the people on the right think of it, they think of it more as a one state in which Israel has the control, rather than one state in which the citizens, whoever they are, have the control. But sure, yeah, that's fine with me.
Israel even seeing a threat. If they are speaking about one state for both of them, they can see a demographic threat by Arabs inside of this country. So maybe because Arabs are getting more and more, and they are the Netanyahu and the whole right wing is scared about this, that one day, not very far from today, this demographic weight will take over the government. So I was hearing Rudy while he's speaking. He speaks so well and so fast also, but he's trying to make the picture even beautiful, even more beautiful than it is. Look, it seems to be so nice hearing you, but the fact and the daily life is completely different, because if you will take the time to speak to each other, I agree with you, but this is not the way that things are going here. There's a government, there's politicians, there are interests, and there are two parties that they are not really in good terms. This is the least that I can say. Palestinians and Israelis. Sometimes Palestinian citizens living inside of Israel, inside of the mixed cities. There's a big discrimination in every field that you can even think about it, and you cannot just say that, hey guys, let's just talk to each other and things will go better. And then you say, no, I'm against both two countries, two-state solution. And in the same breath, you said that you want it to be a Jewish state, democratic. So how can it go? It's uncomfortable.
Rudy, I want to hear your response to this.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So first of all, when I say one state, there are many different ways that we can create one state. We have to get out of this mindset that one state only means what Israel is, an extension in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, and in other places. What it means is we create one civilization. We can have a federation-style plan, which is the way that the peoples always govern themselves locally, an emirate system, something that would be a mix of both. There are many different creative ideas that have been proposed of how to get there, but we'll never get there with the current politicians, and we'll never get there by fighting each other. So when I talk to you about talking to each other, it's not just a romanticization of what's going on. I work day to day with Palestinians. I'm part of a movement called Habayit. We're constantly in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, talking to each other, building, changing people's opinions, cleaning up the land of the pollutions on both peoples, changing the way education is done on both sides, creating content and educational videos for people to see things differently. So I'm talking about change not from the top down, because I'm not in power, and those in power clearly don't want to do anything because it's not in their interest to do something, or they're bound by the current political systems that exist that don't allow them to actually do something. I'm talking of a change from the bottom up, where the people start to unite each other, where the people start speaking and realizing what is going on, so we can actually create that reality.
That's good. That's a good thing. This is a very good thing what you're speaking about now. But let's face it, Rudy. This is not the way things are going on.
Well, we're going to have a lot more.
The way that things are going on.